Welcome to Around the Well, the official podcast of the town of Wellington. I am Jerry Martin, your host and the communications specialist for the town of Wellington. I want to offer a special thanks to all of you for supporting this, our very first episode. Our goal with Around the Well is to provide a space for the discussion of issues that impact the town of Wellington. The topics we discuss here will have a wide range, from the offerings of our town's recreation department to matters related to its municipal code and anything in between. But regardless of topic, our aim will remain the same: to help Wellington residents and businesses get the inside scoop about the issues that affect their town government and their community. For our first episode, which is being released just before the start of Water Conservation Month here in Colorado, we are focusing on water conservation and efficiency. But before we dive into that topic, we need to acknowledge the impact increased water rates have had on our residents and businesses, and how challenging the past year has been for many people here in Wellington. The purpose of discussing water today is to figure out how we can work together to make the most of this precious resource, and to explore tools that may help you save water and lower your costs at home. We will also talk about the different activities and contests Wellington has planned for Water Conservation Month. Before we get to that, however, we will start things off with a conversation about water efficiency with a pair of water experts, one from right here in Wellington and another who works all across northern Colorado. Today we are joined by Jesse Tollefsrud, who is the Collection and Distribution Operations Supervisor for the town of Wellington, as well as a homeowner here in town. We're also joined by Darren Nowels, who is the Water Efficiency Planner for Northern Water. Thank you both for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Jesse, let's kind of start with you. Last summer you had a lot of success making big changes to the irrigation routine at your residence here in Wellington.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about what those changes were and what they resulted in?
What I did, first off, I'd like to say I kind of started doing some smaller things, like earlier in the spring before irrigation even started. Started hand washing my dishes. My dishwasher would run about 10, 12 gallons in order to, wash a full load of dishes. But then I started noticing if I would start hand washing things, I'd only be using about a half a gallon to a gallon. So that was a little one that changed things up a little bit. Not having any kids was another one in the house, and it was just me and my wife, and we were both very comfortable with each other. So another thing we started doing was if it's yellow, let it mellow, and if it's brown, get it down type thing. So that saved us, on average about another 10 gallons of water a day. And then another thing we started doing, we have like 5 garden boxes in the backyard, and we started collecting rainwater. So usually I would just irrigate, with a hose on all of our garden boxes. But last year, we didn't get that much rain, but it's amazing how much you can actually collect off of your roof. So like with those 5 garden boxes, all the flowers are beautiful, but I just bucket watered all of those, which saved me, I didn't do any math on that, but that saved quite a bit.
And that's a relatively new thing in Colorado, I think, the rain barrel thing.
Yeah, I think it was 2016. That's right?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was 2016, and I didn't become aware of it until last year, because one of my coworkers I was chatting with was telling me, he was watering all of his garden boxes with rainwater as well, and it was here's another little thing to do. So I kind of set that up in the spring, and that helped save quite a bit as well.
Very cool. And then last summer, was that when you started with the soak and cycle?
Yeah, so we have a pretty good irrigation tech here in town. His name is Ron Boyd, and I had been chit-chatting with him about, just knowing what the rates were going to do, working for the town and watching the board meetings and whatnot. I was kind of prepared for, what was going to happen in 2024, because, we all really got spoiled in 2023 with how wet everything was, and I don't think the residents and myself didn't really notice that 5% increase. Mm-hmm. But then in 2024, when everything got kind of dry and with another 5% increase, then that really got me thinking okay, well, this is going to be another 10% on top of that. So I just kind of had an informal conversation with Ron about, Ron did all the stuff kind of out here in front of the MSB, to kind of keep all the water efficiency up. And in chatting with Ron, he was telling me about this soak and cycle thing. So what I had been doing I'm from Minnesota, so like we don't need irrigation systems in Minnesota. You just have to mow your yard. So in talking to Ron, like, I've always had a sprinkler system, but just, would set it for, 3 days a week and, 30 minutes each zone, and then, just set the clock and then set it and forget it. Well, Ron started, kind of finger wagging at me a little bit about, this new way to do it, which is called the soak-in cycle. So instead of that, 3 days a week, half hour each zone, and I only have 2 zones. I have a front zone and a back zone. And what I ended up doing was going from that half hour 3 times a week, 2 zones, to the soak-in cycle, which then I would water for 7 minutes at midnight, 7 minutes at 2, and then 7 minutes at 4. Only on our restricted days, and I even dropped 1 day off because the grass it was a little squishy when I was mowing it.
Wow, okay.
So I knocked another day off, which for my August bill, I wish I would have started things earlier, but it's summer and all the fun stuff goes on. So really in August, what I ended up doing, my comparison was from August of 2022, I used 14,000 gallons on my yard, and then in 2022 was like the 4th hottest summer on record. And then 2024 ended up being the 2nd hottest summer on record. So my bill in August of last year, I only used 5,000 gallons of water.
Oh, wow.
So that was a total of 9,000 gallons just in that August. And to tell you the truth, like my lawn looked better in 2024 than it did in 2022. Yeah, it was a huge difference. But there was a couple other things that I did as well. Turf grass doesn't like to grow in Colorado. I mean, we're high desert, so it does require like a regimen of fertilizer. Another coworker that I used to work with, Mark Boating, drove by his house a couple times. I was like, Mark, like, why is your grass so green? And he's like, well, I put stuff on it. And I was like, well, what would you put on it? He's like, well, that's kind of my secret. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then Mark retired, and just a week before he retired, he handed me a little yellow sticky note with everything that he did to his yard. So I started practicing that, which also brought, the amount of water that I needed to put on the yard quite a bit. And then spring and fall aerations are kind of another big thing that people don't think about, because that just provides a place for the air to go down, a place for the water to go down, a place for the fertilizers to go down. So there is a little bit of maintenance that you have to do with your yard. I probably spent like $100 on the fertilizers, and then it's $40, $50, whatever, in order to get the aeration done. So there's a little bit of cost up front, but I think in overall savings, just the not using wasting 9,000 gallons was really a big thing.
It also sounds like you saved a lot of time too, in terms of irrigation time. Just cut that way down.
In August of 2024, I watered like 10.4 hours less than I did in 2022. And one other thing that I want to say is, like, I'm up in Buffalo Creek, which is ran by we have a booster station to boost the pressure in there. And pressure up there is like 80 pounds. And a lot of people don't have a pressure regulating valve on their irrigation system. So in 2024, as I was standing there adjusting on my sprinkler heads, I was just watching how much it was misting.
Right.
And decided to make another trip to Home Depot, another $100 to get a PRV and some shark bite fittings, cut just a little chunk out of my irrigation line heading out to my backflow preventer, and dialed that thing down to like 40 pounds, which made the watering like a lot more efficient. Instead of it coming out as a mist, it was coming out as drops. And what I was noticing is in the morning when I would get up, like usually before, like my sidewalk would be all wet. And, there'd be a considerable amount of water running down the curb and gutter. And on my watering days, by dropping that pressure by 40 pounds, like it all just stayed right on the yard, which was like kind of another thumbs up too as well.
Just in terms of kind of bottom line, do you have any idea how much you saved by doing this last summer?
So in looking at, in studying my graphic last night, like it was like in August of 2022, my bill was like $176. And then in August of 2024, it was $120, but that's not taking into, considering that extra 10%. So if we're comparing apples to apples, about $100 a month is what I got in savings, and like a much better looking yard as well.
Sounds like it worked out on both ends for you. I guess you talked a little bit about this. You talked to some people. Did you do any other kind of research to figure out what you wanted to do to your lawn?
I mean, we're all walking around with these Google devices in our phones, and if you just Google, ways to water your lawn or better watering practice or soak and cycles. I mean, there are tons and tons of irrigation specialists that are out on YouTube with short videos that show you how to adjust your sprinkler heads, show you how to aim them, tell you the system is designed to work at 35 pounds. That was another one that I picked up from watching some YouTube videos was, oh, well, I'm putting 80 pounds to these, which is not good for the system, number one, and then it's misting quite a bit. So I was like, all right, well, let's try dropping this down. And at first I dropped it down to 25 pounds, and then things were just falling out. So just didn't have the volume behind it. So yeah, like I said, cranked it back up to, 40 pounds and then just let it run. And I think that helped conserve quite a bit of water as well, is just making sure that it all fell on the ground.
Yeah, I think everybody who deals with a sprinkler system in their life is used to that misting. So that's very good to know. Darren, along those same lines, what resources are available to residents of northern Colorado who are working to be more water efficient?
Yeah, so first I would just like to say huge kudos to Jesse here for really being such an active water manager, and really I fully co-sign everything he said on tips and tricks and ways that you can really kind of conserve water on your landscape. And yeah, definitely there's a lot of resources online. I can't pass up the opportunity to plug Northern Water's website. It's just northernwater.org. We've got a ton of different resources around landscape water efficiency on there, focusing on anything from irrigation to hosting a lot of plant lists if you're looking at installing more kind of water-wise landscapes and plant material. We've got some sample planting and landscape designs that can help you put some of those plants in. And then we have a lot of other information on things like soils and kind of the interaction between soils and water use and how to really maximize the water use on your landscape. And then there's also a lot of other resources on Colorado State University's extension website. And then if you're not lucky enough to have somebody like Jesse to kind of coach you through all of these changes and actions, then Resource Central has a really good program called Slow the Flow, which is, I think it's available to the town of Wellington residents.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a completely free service where they'll send a technician out to do a little assessment of your sprinkler system and identify specific ways that you can improve water efficiency, from making fixes to the sprinklers themselves all the way up to really changing the watering schedule to make it the most efficient and effective it possibly can be.
Very cool. Yeah, the Resource Central is definitely something we have access to here. Slow the Flow, the Garden in the Box, they're great. And also I think CSU, it's a great resource that we're lucky to have when we live in this part of the state and this part of the country. Jesse, what advice would you give to a resident who wants to work toward making the same kind of positive changes to their irrigation routine that you did?
Well, just like kind of anything with being a homeowner, you have to take care of things. You have to take care of things. You have to do maintenance. We had a lot of interactions with residents throughout the summer, just talking them through like how to maintain their system, and really, really understanding your sprinkler clock is really what we determined in the 400 plus work orders that we responded to last summer. That was really our main advice, was just like, don't just set it and forget it. Watch the weather as well. That was another big thing. I mean, we had a couple rainy weeks in June and July where I literally didn't water at all. I just shut everything off because, I have a little rain gauge out in the backyard as well. That was another little one which helped me gauge, just how much water my lawn was getting. Okay. So really the biggest one is, on startup, walk around, check all your heads, make sure nothing's gushing, and really learn your sprinkler clock. And they're a little intimidating, to the layperson, but there again, all you got to do is find out what kind of controller you have, pull some stuff up on YouTube, and they'll walk you right through on how to use it. So really knowing your sprinkler clock and doing the maintenance on your system is really the biggest advice that I could give.
Great. And Darren, what's same question for you? What advice would you offer?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Jesse on that. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do. Just to pay close attention to your sprinkler system and make sure you're doing those checks and making sure you don't have geysers shooting up in the middle of your yard if you have any broken heads, things like that. But then above and beyond, paying close attention, getting familiar with your control clock. If it becomes too intimidating, or if you have a really old or outdated sprinkler control clock, you can also purchase a new weather-based smart controller as well that really changes the schedule based off of real-time like weather data, and so make sure that you're not watering during the rain or after a big rainstorm. There's also rain sensors too that you could potentially install as well that helps to shut off the sprinklers during a rainstorm, and then I think there's some other kind of less expensive options too. I mean, just above and beyond the cycle and soak method, I think that you can also mow your grass a little less frequently, let it grow a little bit higher. That can help kind of shade the soil and reduce the water demand of the grass, especially in the heat of the summer.
Okay.
And then, also take a look around your landscape too, and kind of think about what are the areas of your grass and your lawn that you just don't use. The only time you set foot on that is just to mow it. And really consider if you want to keep that, and maybe look at the opportunities that you have to take that out and replace it with more of a water efficient or water wise garden. Jerry mentioned the Garden in a Box program by Resource Central. That's a great resource. If you take out some grass, you can really easily just get one of those garden boxes, one of those kits, and install that in your landscape. And you'll have to make some changes to the irrigation system itself, which can also be a little intimidating. But there's a ton of resources out there to help you with that. But then that can also really dramatically reduce the water need on your landscape by about 50%.
Wow. And just a quick note, Wellington residents do get a discount for the Garden in the Box too, so that's a great resource to look into.
Yeah, can I throw one more thing onto what Darren said was, in 2020, when everybody was, stuck in their backyards, going back to what Darren said about, those areas that you're just mowing, that's kind of what defined like where my turf areas were going to be. So I actually got rid of about 60% of what was in my backyard, with just some eco-friendly borders, a whole bunch of mulch, and then all the garden boxes, which slowed everything down. But I also did make a note about going to this Northern Water website to take a look at some stuff, because I am looking at getting rid of a bunch of turf in my front yard this summer. That's kind of like that's my spring project. Moving some sprinkler heads up, putting in some borders, putting in some rock, not mulch because it's a little windy up there, and I got no fence around that, so
Sure.
that'll all disappear. But yeah, that northernwater.com will be definitely something that I'll be going to check out and take a look at some of those water-wise plants.
Awesome. So obviously there is a lot to consider when it comes to water efficiency. One factor that I think is surprisingly easy to overlook that both of you have touched on is the weather. Jesse, you talked about this a little bit, kind of watching the rain and using a rain gauge to kind of tell how much water had been on your yard. Do you have any advice for residents on how they can kind of do the same thing, how they can learn to read the weather and let that affect how much they're irrigating their own yard?
Well, I'll go back again to these little Google devices that we have in our pockets. There's a ton of great weather apps that are out there. Investing in just a simple little rain gauge that you can set up in the middle of your backyard. That'll help gauge things as well. Another thing that I did is, after a decent rainstorm, if, we'd get like a 2-incher, I'd shut the clock off and then just kind of watch my yard until it started to stress just a little bit. And then that was my indicator to kind of turn the clock back on. And going back to what Darren had mentioned too about leaving your grass long, that's really another big one that will help, kind of really drive those roots kind of down into the ground. But really just, paying attention to what the weather's doing and knowing how much our water costs and just being more aware of it.
Okay, great. And Darren, what do factors like weather trends have on regional need for water efficiency?
Yeah, I think it's really important too to kind of take a step back and recognize that water is really it's a shared resource, and it's vital and it's certainly not infinite. And ultimately it starts as snowpack up in the mountains, and then as it melts, it's collected into streams and rivers, and then that's taken and put into reservoirs here locally. That really it's kind of like our bank account for water, right? That those reservoirs, we need to make deposits and withdrawals when we need it. So when we get these really dry winters, where we're not getting a lot of snow up in the mountains, and our snowpack is below median, and maybe we're getting a warmer spring too, so the runoff starts earlier, and maybe we're not able to make as big of deposits into those local reservoirs. And then you put on top of that really like hot, dry conditions in the summer that raises the water demand for our landscape, which takes around 50% of the residential water use. It really puts a strain on the water resources, and it puts a strain on that bank account. And if that keeps up for multiple years, then that makes our water supplies a little bit smaller, and really kind of drives the need to really conserve water. And I think it's just so important to also recognize that we all collectively can really make an impact. If we're all saving water, we can really kind of stretch those water resources and really shore up that bank account and make sure that we still have enough water for now and the future.
Great. So obviously Jesse's touched on this a little bit, but water production and water usage have been big issues in Wellington for a few years now. The town had a rate and fee study done in 2022, resulting in planned rate increases. And the same year, work started on expansions in the water treatment plant and the water reclamation facility, both of which finished this year. But moving our attention to the entire region, it seems like in the past year or two, other municipalities have shifted in that same direction. Multiple municipalities have entered into rate studies and planned rate increases in that time. And it seems like smaller municipalities have moved to ensure access to adequate treatment facilities, most notably with the creation of the Cobb Lake Regional Water Treatment Authority, which will serve Fort Collins Loveland Water District and the towns of Eaton, Severance, and Windsor. Darren, what has that shift meant for water conservation efforts in the region?
I mean, it really honestly makes water conservation a little bit more attractive, just from kind of a cost-benefit analysis, if you will. I think that, first off, I think folks are going to be really looking for more ways to reduce that water bill, that cost, especially with costs going up really across the board in so many different aspects of our daily lives. But with those higher prices, those higher costs of water, it really means that the payback period on investing in water conservation. So spending $200 on a new really ultra high efficiency toilet or installing a smart controller, the water savings from that actually will help you save money quicker and really pay you back for that initial investment first. And then also to take a step back to more broadly, we are in northeastern Colorado, and we have a really growing population, and some places a very rapidly growing population, and that might also really require some additional water supplies, maybe new water supply projects or water acquisitions, and that can be pretty costly too in the long run, and that might also lead to additional water rates increases in the future. So this really kind of puts water conservation in the spotlight as a tool to put off some of the needs for those investments into those water supply projects and those acquisitions. But I can't say that water conservation is a silver bullet. It's just one of the pieces of the toolkit that you can use, and there's really just a ton of other resources and strategies to kind of stretch our water supplies. But water conservation is something that we all really have an input into, and that we have a role to play in.
As the cost of water and availability of water become increasingly relevant factors, are there any new ways that we're using to try to tackle water conservation, or maybe any ways that were less popular that have become more popular?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is such a great question, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily new, but I think to your point, yeah, I think it's becoming more and more popular, but that's turf replacement. I mean, Jesse and I kind of already mentioned, taking out some of that unused turf that doesn't necessarily, translate to good water use, or really that efficient water use, and using a plant that doesn't really necessarily belong in Colorado. Certainly Kentucky bluegrass and our lawns have a place. Definitely will not deny that for recreational purposes, and there's so many other benefits too from aesthetics as well. But ultimately I think that the more we're able to replace some of this higher water using turf and really replace it with more water-wise landscaping, I think we're going to see a lot more benefits above and beyond just water savings. We can also, with these water-wise gardens, we can attract more pollinators and create and support more wildlife habitat. And what's really nice about this too is that you can have a really green and lush and beautiful, colorful, vibrant landscape, even when it's really hot and dry out there. When, if a utility or a municipality enters into drought restrictions and kind of restricts the amount of water you should really be putting on your landscape, these gardens and these landscapes can be so much more resilient and green. But I really want to stress though that, when you take out grass, we really want to see a lot of plant coverage. So we don't want to just see a bunch of rocks and a couple cactus. That's not kind of the landscape aesthetic, the natural environment that we're really trying to emulate here. It's a lot of just beautiful and colorful gardens.
Great. And what do you think the future of water and water efficiency efforts in this region look like?
So we've talked a little bit about replacing existing grass, and you'll see in a lot of new developments and new housing developments that there's still a lot of grass and this Kentucky bluegrass lawns going into these new developments. So I think that there's going to have to be, and there's already progress on this, but there will be more policy shifts to really require those developers to limit the amount of grass that's actually installed, and then really shift to this more sustainable, Colorado-friendly landscape that's much more climate adaptive and have all of these like great benefits too. And so we're going to see a lot of these gardens, but then also there's a great place too for native grasses too, that are, aesthetically, pleasing and really resilient. And ultimately, I think that, we'll see in the future our landscape start to shift to more of the kind of the natural landscape that we've seen really before kind of Western settlement here in northern Colorado.
Yeah, and Jerry, let me touch on that too, because going back to what Darren had said here, I'm around town, not every day, but I'm literally everywhere in
Sure.
town, and I actually see this starting to catch on. There's a few places down south that have completely taken all of their turf grass out of the front, and put in native plants, put in some native rocks, some smaller rocks as well, and kind of made it look high desert. And as I drive by, those type of places just really, really stand out. There were a few of them that started popping up, but over the course of the last 3 years, I'm even looking out the window right now, and this little yellow house on the corner, that's exactly what they did. And I think it just gives your property just a little bit more of a standout look, if you will, opposed to just being a whole, you look down a block and everything is turf grass, but then you have this one place with a little bit of turf grass and then a whole bunch of native stuff around it. It's that's really, as I'm driving by, that's really the property that's kind of catching my eye.
So part of what Northern Water does is to help establish programs for water conservation with area groups and municipalities. And here in Wellington, I think you all are helping partner with us for a showerhead and aerator exchange. So Darren, can you talk a little bit more about what Northern Water does to help support communities with water efficiency?
Yeah, certainly. At Northern Water, we're really excited to be able to support our communities, and a lot of the programs and services that we offer are really done in such a collaborative way, and really we try to accentuate the partnerships and really work together to find solutions to water conservation, water efficiency. But we're able, through these partnerships, we're able to offer a ton of different trainings, whether it's more, focused for landscapers or municipal parks employees to think through, efficient irrigation strategies, sustainable landscape management strategies. And then we're also, offering trainings for some of the other staff members at municipalities, bringing folks in planning and water resources together to really emphasize and really connect water to land use planning in the future, to really make sure that we're all growing really efficiently. And then we also offer a lot of other services more directly to the communities, and then also to their customers as well. So we offer irrigation assessments so through Resource Central, we partner with Resource Central to kind of buy down the cost of those large property or HOA and business irrigation sprinkler evaluations. And then We also offer a few of our own services kind of directly to customers, mostly, commercial customers. So any non-single family residential home is really can access a lot of our programs here. But we offer these landscape consultations where a couple of our staff will go out and coach people through maybe looking for ways that they can improve their landscape or remove some of their turf and replace it with some more water-wise landscaping. And then we offer grants and support some of the costs and cover the costs to help bring these projects to life. I know we worked with the town of Wellington right out front of the municipal services building to help support the installation of a brand new water-wise garden. And so we're able to work with a bunch of different types of customers, not just, business owners and commercial properties, but also our municipalities and our cities and our water providers.
You touched on the slow the flow, and I know that you guys also offer commercial water audits and indoor water audits. Can you talk a little bit about what the process looks like for those features that you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the commercial side, we partner with a firm called Brendel Group. They will essentially, work with our business owners, restaurants, rec centers, schools, office buildings, pretty much any, again, non-single family residential owner to really understand kind of what they're using their water on and identify opportunities and make recommendations to improve their water use efficiency within their buildings. And then we also offer direct installs of different types of fixtures like shower heads and faucet aerators and pre-rinse spray valves in commercial kitchens. On the residential side, we work with a couple conservation corps, the Larimer County Conservation Corps and the Weld County Youth Conservation Corps, to support their efforts in a program that they have running with a couple of the towns in those counties to offer these indoor energy and water audits. But we supply the fixtures, the shower heads, the aerators, some toilets as well, where the residents of these areas in Loveland and Fort Collins and Greeley and Evans are able to they're able to get a audit, and not only will those conservation corps identify ways that they can save water, but they'll actually install these shower heads and aerators and toilets right then and there, and really so you're able to get some immediate water savings, and it's all for free too, which is just a fantastic service, and we're really looking for ways to expand the reach of this service and really open it up to new towns as well.
Great. Pulling back a little bit, water conservation is something that we talk about a lot, but I think it's also an idea that can seem a little bit disconnected for homeowners. Other than lowering their own bills, efficiency efforts often seem like something they're asked to do to help solve someone else's problem. Can you talk a little bit about why conservation is a vital issue for everyone?
Absolutely. And I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about this being really a shared resource. And I definitely don't want to oversimplify. I mean, I think water resources and water rights are really incredibly complicated too. But broadly speaking, the more water that we can conserve and that we can save, it means less water that we're taking out of our local reservoirs and our local rivers. And so that means more water for recreation. It means more water for boating and for fishing. It means more water in the rivers for habitat and species preservation. And I think maybe most importantly, it means more water really in the streams and rivers for our agriculture users to take out and produce our food, which is really such a vital part of our regional economy.
Jesse, you touched on this a little bit at the beginning, talking about the practical impacts of your water efficiency efforts and kind of what led to those. Could you talk a little bit more about what led you to do that? Was it a matter of just the water bill that you kind of saw coming, or was there a sense of responsibility for kind of protecting our resources?
There was definitely a sense of responsibility for saving the resources. I mean, I've been in this water business for 20 years now. Started learning, a little bit about water law back in the day, and kind of reiterating on what Darren had said, it's being part of a community, and then like also knowing kind of like what the water situation was in Wellington here a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, just simply our treatment capacity. So, I was trying to do my part, number one, as a resident, and then also trying to do my part as an employee, knowing a little bit more of the background story of what that old plant was, really, running in that red line. And it was like, okay, well, if I can do just my little part, like that's going to help them out quite a bit. And then, I'm not going to lie, like the money part of it, like really had something to do with it too. like I said, kind of being an insider, knowing what the plant was going through, feeling that part of, being a part of Wellington, and then, just me trying to lower my bill and kind of do my part for the community is really the basis why I made all the decisions that I did.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. I appreciate it. I think this is a lot of great information for our community. Before we go, is there any other information or resources that you think Wellington residents should know about to help with water efficiency? Jesse, why don't you go first?
Well, yeah, this has been great being able to sit here and listen to Darren. And, I would say I'd kind of break it down to three things that every homeowner should kind of do. Do your maintenance, do your education, and then use all those resources that are out there. I mean, it is a little bit of work, but I think in the long run, just everybody kind of doing those three things and doing their part to feel part of Wellington, that would be how I would, kind of phrase all of that, is do your part and do those three things, and you'll start to make your yard stand out a little bit.
Okay, great. And Darren, how about you?
I mean, everything Jesse said. I think definitely,
Thank you.
Everyone in the town of Wellington, I think, is really fortunate to have these kind of, water conservation champions and heroes like Jesse to listen to. And I think above and beyond that too, I think that, and really to echo Jesse on this as well, I think stay plugged in. Make sure you're paying attention to what the town is communicating to you, what resources that they have, what programs you can take part of, and then, pay close attention to if there's any watering restrictions, or, if they're asking you to take any actions, and just really, stay involved, stay on top of it, really be those active water managers. And then talk with your neighbors too. If you've made some of these changes and you've seen a lot of successes, share those successes with your neighbors and start those conversations and really kind of get them plugged in and really, share the wealth of knowledge and information and water savings. And, ultimately I think that if we're all able to save a bit, then we all stand to really gain a lot.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Information about water conservation, including efficiency tips, resources, and a listing of community events and programs available through Northern Water, can be found at northernwater.org. For more information about the Colorado State University Extension, go to extension.colostate.edu. In addition to those resources, the Town of Wellington also partners with Resource Central to offer residents a variety of water resources. Resource Central is a Colorado nonprofit that has been helping people save water since 1976. Those resources include free irrigation audits, a discount on garden-in-a-box kits, a rebate for lawn removal, and WaterWise yard seminars. The free irrigation audits, known as the Slow the Flow program, are designed to help Colorado residents reduce water use by optimizing the efficiency of their sprinkler system. With one of these free irrigation consultations, participants gain knowledge about their system, get a customized watering schedule, and learn how to reduce water waste. The Garden in a Box program offers professionally designed WaterWise garden kits that are tailor-made for yards in Colorado. A limited number of boxes are discounted by $25 for Wellington Water utility customers each year, given on a first-come, first-served basis. The Lawn Removal Rebate Program is designed to encourage homeowners to replace their traditional grass lawns with drought-tolerant landscaping. Thanks to a generous grant from the Colorado Water Conservation Board, Resource Central is extending a discount of up to $750 to residents across Colorado for turf replacement. Finally, WaterWise yard seminars are free virtual forums taught by landscape and horticultural professionals that are designed to answer landscaping questions and keep your yard looking great while using less water. Information on all these resources is available at resourcecentral.org and on the Town of Wellington's Water Efficiency Program webpage. The link to that page and all the other links mentioned here can be found in the notes for this episode. Also available there is a link to our Water Conservation Month webpage, which features details on the conservation events and activities the town has planned. That includes a tour of the water treatment plant, weekly trivia questions, and a low-flow shower head and toilet giveaway. The water plant tour takes place from noon to 1 p.m. on April 5th at the plant, located at 10697 North County Road 11 in Wellington. Registration is required. Weekly Trivia features a new question posted to the town's Facebook account each Sunday during April. The first person to reply with the correct answer wins a prize. And participants in the showerhead and toilet giveaway will watch an educational video on indoor water conservation and fill out a form for a chance to win a showerhead or a rebate for a low-flow toilet. Also during Water Conservation Month, we will debut a new blog about water conservation on our website. Find the link to our Water Conservation Month webpage for more information on all these activities. That's all we have for this first episode. Special thanks to Wellington's own Jesse Tollefsrud, as well as Darren Nowels of Northern Water for joining me. Remember to check the episode notes for links to the resources we talked about here, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Around the Well.